The observation deck of the Galactic Council's Cultural Analysis Station hung suspended in the darkness of space, its crystalline walls offering an unobstructed view of the unremarkable yellow star and its third planet. Dr. Lyron adjusted her ocular implants, focusing on the night side of Earth as it rotated slowly beneath her. Another transmission burst, her assistant Ketval noted, his feathered appendages fluttering with mild interest. That makes 812 in the last solar rotation. Dr. Lyron's mouthparts clicked in amusement. Record it all. The entertainment division can't get enough of these television shows, particularly the ones about medical professionals engaged in reproductive rituals. Around them, the monitoring station hummed with activity. 37 different species worked in harmony, their sole purpose to observe, catalog and analyze the continuous stream of electromagnetic noise emanating from the blue planet. Massive quantum computers processed the signals, translating human languages, decoding their primitive digital encryption, and constructing behavioral models that predicted human development with 97.8% accuracy. They've reached level 2.3 on the civilization scale, Ketval remarked, scrolling through the latest metrics. Their energy consumption increased 12% since last measurement. Fossil fuel dependence down 4%. Dr. Lyron waved a dismissive tendril. Within expected parameters. The developmental trajectory algorithm still places them at formal contact readiness in approximately 200 years. She paused, focusing her attention on the holographic display of human internet traffic patterns pulsing above her workstation. Fascinating how they build such complex information networks despite their neural limitations. Counselor Zexun drifted into the observation deck, his gravitational stabilizers compensating for his massive gas giant physiology. Lesser species moved respectfully aside. "Doctor," his translated voice resonated through the chamber, "the Council requires your quarterly assessment. The Expansion Committee is particularly interested in Earth's military development potential." Dr. Lyron projected confidence as she responded. "Minimal concern, Counselor. Their weapons technology advances linearly, constrained by their understanding of physics. They still believe quantum entanglement cannot transmit information." A ripple of amusement passed through the more technically advanced staff members. "And their psychological profile?" the counselor pressed. "Unchanged. Humans remain predictably unpredictable within established parameters. Their primary distinguishing trait continues to be exceptional adaptability coupled with remarkable creativity. They compensate for their physical and neurological limitations through technological augmentation and social cooperation." She displayed a series of human historical events. "They consistently display capacity for both extraordinary compassion and alarming aggression, often simultaneously." The counselor absorbed this information, his atmospheric composition shifting slightly to indicate satisfaction. "The defensive monitoring stations around the Sol system remain undetected." "Completely," Ketval interjected, eager to contribute. "Our quantum camouflage technology operates well beyond their detection capabilities. The observation post on Eurova maintains perfect concealment, and the dimensional fold stations at Lagrange points register zero probability of discovery." As the counselor departed, Dr. Lyron returned to her personal research project. For 80 cycles, she had been monitoring subtle anomalies in human creative expression, patterns in their music, mathematical symmetries in their architecture, and recurring symbols in their art that suggested unconscious awareness of universal constants. Merely coincidence, her colleagues insisted, yet something about these patterns troubled her. That evening cycle, as the observation deck quieted for minimal staffing, Ketval noticed something curious in the transmission monitoring array. For precisely 3.8 seconds, the entire electromagnetic output of Earth seemed to synchronize in a pattern that resembled a calibration sequence. He considered reporting it, but decided against disturbing the senior staff. After all, primitive civilizations often produced random signal patterns that mimicked intelligent design. He filed the anomaly under statistical aberrations and continued his monitoring duties, unaware that identical aberrations had occurred simultaneously across 27 different monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. On Earth, in an unremarkable building in Geneva, a woman named Eleanor Chen smiled slightly as she reviewed the results of humanity's first test of the planetary consciousness shield. Phase 1 had been successfully completed, right under the noses of their watchers. Commander Zex Lura's morning began like any other on Europa's hidden observation post. The facility, embedded 2 kilometers beneath the ice moon's surface, had maintained continuous surveillance of Earth for 3 centuries. She absorbed the night shifts report through her neural interface while sampling the synthetic nutrient bath that sustained her photosynthetic metabolism. Standard transmissions overnight. Lieutenant Mortak reported, his exoskeleton clicking softly as he transferred monitoring control. Though signal intensity decreased approximately 8% across all bandwidths. Zex Lura noted this without concern. Human communication technologies frequently fluctuated based on atmospheric conditions, solar activity, and their primitive infrastructure limitations. Maintain standard observation protocols, she instructed, settling into the primary monitoring pod. Alert me if. The alert system activated before she could finish her sentence. Across the command center, monitoring stations flashed with identical notifications. Lieutenant Mortak rushed to the central analysis terminal. Commander, Earth's transmissions are decreasing at an unprecedented rate. Television broadcasts, radio signals, satellite communications, all declining simultaneously. Zex Lura initiated emergency assessment protocols. Solar flare activity. Negative, a junior analyst reported. Sol remains stable. Global infrastructure failure. Surface power distribution appears unaffected. Their orbital satellites remain operational. For the next 17 minutes, they watched as humanity's electromagnetic voice, the constant chatter that had been streaming into space since their discovery of radio, gradually diminished until only the faintest echoes remained. Recalibrate all sensors, Zex Lura ordered, maintaining outward composure despite her mounting concern. Deploy the quantum entanglement detectors, the sophisticated equipment capable of monitoring subatomic fluctuations across vast distances, revealed something that defied explanation. Earth wasn't experiencing a communication blackout. It was being enveloped by something that absorbed electromagnetic radiation with perfect efficiency. Magnify Sector 7, Zex Lura instructed, focusing on a metropolitan area their records identified as Greater London. The visual feed showed vehicles moving along illuminated roads, buildings with functioning lights, and aircraft traversing the night sky. Human civilization continued operating normally, yet not a single communication signal escaped the atmosphere. It's as if Lieutenant Mortak struggled to articulate what they were witnessing, as if they've wrapped their entire planet in a selectively permeable membrane. The final communication signals vanished 34 minutes after the decline began. Zex Lura immediately established a quantum link with Galactic Council headquarters. Emergency Situation Alpha 9, she reported to the startled duty officer. Earth has gone silent. 12 hours later, the Council's emergency session convened. Representatives from 217 member civilizations filled the Great Chamber, their agitation evident even across species with radically different physiologies. High Counselor Vex Moore, whose gaseous form shimmered with stress induced bioluminescence, addressed the assembly. Our monitoring stations confirm that Earth has ceased all electromagnetic transmissions, yet our observers report no evidence of catastrophic events, warfare, or civilization collapse. Dr. Lyron presented her preliminary analysis. The phenomenon appears technological in nature, though it utilizes principles we cannot yet identify. It permits matter, light, and gravitational forces to pass through while perfectly containing electromagnetic radiation. Could this be an accidental discovery? Asked the representative from the Cygnus Collective. Perhaps an experiment gone awry. Impossible, Dr. Lyron responded. The energy field enveloped the planet in a precisely coordinated sequence, beginning at multiple points simultaneously. This was deliberate. Senior physicist Jin Tall, whose species had pioneered quantum field manipulation, approached the central projection platform. His normally steady appendages trembled visibly. "Counselors, I attempted to analyze the energy signature surrounding Earth," he began, his voice uncharacteristically strained. "What I discovered challenges our understanding of reality." The chamber fell silent as he projected his findings, complex equations and field models that caused several mathematically gifted members to audibly gasp. This technology operates on principles that suggest awareness of at least three-dimensional layers beyond our current theoretical models. It isn't merely containing electromagnetic radiation. It's selectively permitting certain information to exit while reconfiguring the rest. Ambassador Zixtal observed Earth through the viewport of the diplomatic vessel, Harmonious Accord, as it decelerated at the edge of the solar system. In her 4 centuries of service, she had initiated first contact with 17 civilizations and mediated 32 interspecies conflicts, but something about this mission unsettled her deeply. "Final approach vector calculated," announced Navigator Rill, his crystalline sensory appendages glittering with reflected starlight, maintaining minimal energy signature as instructed. The Harmonious Accord represented the pinnacle of Council engineering, a perfect blend of technology from 12 different member species. Its hull featured intricate patterns that universal mathematical principles suggested would be recognized as peaceful by any intelligent species. Its very shape conveyed diplomatic intent through geometric harmony. "Deploy the greeting sphere," Zixtal instructed. From the ship's undercarriage, a luminous orb detached and moved ahead of their vessel. The sphere contained the Council's standard first contact package. Mathematical sequences demonstrating peaceful intent, simple molecular diagrams establishing biological compatibility, and conceptual frameworks for translating between disparate communication systems. "Sphere is broadcasting on all frequencies," Lieutenant Pax confirmed from her communication station, her feathered brow furrowed. "No response detected." "Continue approach," Zixtal ordered. "Maintain passive scanning only." As they crossed the orbit of Mars, Science Officer Tilarin reported the first anomaly. "Ambassador, I'm detecting unusual quantum fluctuations in our sensor arrays. Interference from Earth's energy field." "No," Tilarin replied, confusion evident in her harmonic voice. "The fluctuations are originating within our own systems. It's as if," she hesitated, "as if our quantum computers are receiving solutions to calculations they haven't performed yet." Zixtal felt the first stirring of genuine alarm. "Explain." "Our predictive navigation algorithms typically calculate thousands of potential trajectories simultaneously. But now they're converging on optimal solutions instantly, without the intermediate computation stages." Before Zixtal could respond, Navigator Rill called out, "Ambassador, our approach vector is adjusting automatically." On the command displays, their carefully planned trajectory shifted, curving into a stable orbit that would position them precisely above Earth's northern hemisphere. No one had authorized the change. "Override navigation," Zixtal ordered. "Systems aren't responding," Rill reported, his crystalline appendages vibrating with stress frequencies. "But the new trajectory is perfect. It minimizes our energy expenditure by 27% while positioning us at an optimal observation distance." As they settled into the unauthorized orbit, Lieutenant Pax gasped softly, "Ambassador, the greeting sphere, it's changing." The diplomatic device, programmed with immutable first contact protocols, was reconfiguring itself. The mathematical sequences it broadcast evolved into more complex patterns that incorporated elements of Earth's own mathematical traditions, creating a hybrid symbolic language that bridged galactic standard notation with human mathematical concepts. "This is impossible," Tilarin whispered. "The sphere's programming is hard-coded at the quantum level." Ambassador Zixtal felt a presence brush against her consciousness, not invasive, but unmistakably deliberate. A gentle pressure that conveyed patience, curiosity, and something she could only interpret as amusement. "They're aware of us," she announced, her voice steady despite her inner turmoil. And they're communicating, though not through any medium we anticipated. The sensation intensified, conveying complex concepts directly into her mind. Understanding bloomed within her consciousness without passing through language. She saw humanity's awareness of galactic observation stretching back centuries, their deliberate technological restraint, their patient preparation. Most unsettling was the message that formed with perfect clarity in her thoughts. Asterisk not yet. We are completing our transition. Return when we call asterisk. For 17 minutes, the crew experienced similar contacts, each receiving information tailored to their specific neurological structure. When the presence withdrew, the ship's systems returned to normal function. Their greeting sphere drifted back, fundamentally altered at the atomic level, now containing data that would take their scientists decades to fully analyze. Set return course to Council space, Zixtal ordered quietly. Ambassador, Lieutenant Pax questioned. We've made no formal contact. The diplomatic protocols have been acknowledged and politely declined. Zixtal interrupted. They've communicated more clearly than any species we've encountered. They're not hostile, but they are becoming something we don't yet understand. As the harmonious accord accelerated away from Earth, Ambassador Zixtal composed her report to the Council. How could she explain that humans hadn't developed a technology to block communications, but rather a method to communicate directly with consciousness itself? How could she convey that the silence wasn't a threat, but a chrysalis, humanity transforming into something beyond current galactic classification systems? Most troubling of all, how could she explain her certainty that humanity had been guiding their own observation since the beginning? The Council archives stretched 16 levels beneath the surface of Axis Prime, a repository of knowledge spanning 80,000 years of galactic civilization. Specialist Threll moved through the quantum-locked data vaults with practiced efficiency, her six-limbed form perfectly adapted to the archive's unique interface systems. Access historical monitoring records for Sol 3. She instructed the archive intelligence. Comparative analysis, all observation periods. After Ambassador Zixtal's disturbing report, the Council had commissioned a comprehensive review of all data ever collected on Earth. Threll, whose species possessed perfect recall and pattern recognition capabilities, led the investigation team. Archives accessed. The system responded. 273 exabytes of observational data available. Around her, holographic displays materialized, showing Earth's development across millennia. Her team of specialists from various disciplines assembled at their workstations, ready to analyze specific aspects of human evolution. Begin with anomalous developmental patterns, Threll directed. Compare actual technological progress against standard evolutionary models. Xenobiologist Dr. Nexer, whose gelatinous form contained billions of specialized analytical organelles, examined human biological development. Their neural complexity exceeds their evolutionary needs by approximately 380%, he noted. No other observed species develops cognitive capabilities so drastically beyond survival requirements. Cultural artifacts next, Threll instructed. Archived specialist Vela examined thousands of human artistic creations simultaneously. Their earliest cave paintings contain mathematical ratios that appear throughout their development. The same proportions emerge in their architecture, music, and visual arts across isolated populations with no contact. Could be coincidence, suggested quantum historian Zenla. Many species discovered the same mathematical truths independently. Not like this, Vela countered, projecting a complex comparison matrix. These patterns don't just represent universal mathematical concepts. They encode information in ways that become apparent only when viewed across centuries of development. Threll absorbed this troubling observation. Communications analysis. Linguistic expert Korevex manipulated the three-dimensional language models hovering before her. Human languages evolve at 2.7 times the rate of comparable species, yet maintain internal conceptual consistency despite their fragmentation. More concerning, Their fictional narratives statistically predict their technological innovations with 87% accuracy. Elaborate, Thrall requested, her neural pathways tingling with unease. They imagine technologies in elaborate detail before creating them, Koravex explained. Their science fiction consistently precedes scientific breakthroughs by decades or centuries, often with remarkable specificity. It's as if their creative imagination functions as a form of cultural precognition. The implications sent ripples of discomfort through the team. Precognition was theoretically impossible according to Council science. Historical technological assessment. Thrall directed, maintaining professional detachment despite her growing concern. Technology historian Macron projected a detailed developmental timeline. Their technological progress doesn't follow standard S-curves. Instead, they experience punctuated equilibrium, long periods of gradual advancement interrupted by inexplicable innovative leaps. He highlighted specific historical periods. During their renaissance, they rediscovered mathematical principles that accelerated their development by approximately 500 years. Their industrial revolution compressed technological phases that took other species millennia to navigate. Their digital age saw information technology advance at rates that defy standard innovation models. Most concerning, he continued, their understanding of quantum mechanics emerged with suspicious rapidity. They progressed from classical physics to quantum field theory in less than a century, a transition that required 900 years in the most accelerated cases we've observed elsewhere. Thrall integrated these observations, her specialized brain constructing meta-patterns from disparate data streams. A disturbing hypothesis formed in her consciousness. Cross-reference all anomalous patterns, she instructed. Apply developmental transparency analysis. The archive systems processed her request, correlating millions of data points. The resulting projection caused several team members to emit involuntary distress pheromones. The statistical model suggests. The archive intelligence hesitated, as if questioning its own conclusions. A 97.3% probability that human development has been deliberately managed to create the appearance of natural evolution while concealing their actual capabilities. For how long? Thrall asked quietly. Conservative estimate. Minimum 1,200 years. Maximum potential time frame. Their entire recorded history. The implications were staggering. If humans had been aware of galactic observation and deliberately presenting a false developmental front, every assessment the Council had ever made about Earth was potentially meaningless. There's more, whispered Vela, who had been analyzing Earth's earliest mythological narratives. Their oldest stories consistently reference beings who connect mind to mind, manipulate reality through consciousness, and transcend physical limitations. We categorize these as primitive supernatural beliefs. But they may have been describing their own potential. Thrall finished, understanding blooming with chilling clarity, or their actual capabilities, hidden in plain sight as mythology. In the silence that followed, the team confronted an unsettling possibility. What if humans had never been evolving toward technological advancement at all? What if technology had merely been their temporary bridge to something far more fundamental, the direct manipulation of reality through consciousness itself? The trading hub of Keras Prime occupied a strategic position at the nexus of 7 major commerce routes. Its crystalline docking arrays normally accommodated over 12,000 vessels daily, but activity had decreased by 60% since Earth's silence began. Trade Commissioner Laxware surveyed the emptying docking bays from her observation platform, calculating the economic impact with growing concern. Another Cygnus merchant fleet canceled their scheduled arrival, her assistant reported. They're rerouting through the Antares corridor, despite the additional 14 cycles of travel time. The Antares route costs them 3 times the standard tariffs, Laxware noted. Their profit margins will be decimated. They consider it an acceptable loss to avoid proximity to the Sol system. Throughout the trading nexus, similar scenarios unfolded. Species that had coexisted peacefully for millennia now regarded each other with suspicion. Those with evolutionary connections to Earth, primarily mammalian or humanoid forms, found themselves subjected to enhanced security protocols and trading restrictions. In the financial exchange chambers, the situation deteriorated hourly. Currency values fluctuated wildly as traders attempted to predict which resources might be valuable in potential conflict scenarios. Markets for defensive technologies soared while luxury goods plummeted. Predictive algorithms failed completely, unable to model the psychological impact of Earth's silence on consumer confidence. Commissioner, an urgent communication interrupted her observations. The Quantum Communications Guild requests your immediate presence. The Guild maintained the vast network of entangled particles that enabled instantaneous communication across galactic distances. Their headquarters occupy the station's central spire, where the most sophisticated quantum systems in known space were maintained in perfect isolation. Guildmaster Tenla greeted her with uncharacteristic agitation, his normally methodical thought patterns fragmented with anxiety. Our network is experiencing unprecedented anomalies, he explained, leading her to the primary monitoring chamber. Observe. The massive holographic display showed the quantum communication network, trillions of entangled particles linked across thousands of light years. Normally, the system displayed as an elegant web of blue-white connections. Now, however, sections pulsed with amber patterns that spread like ripples from a central point. The origin? Laxfire asked, though she already suspected the answer. Sol system, Senla confirmed. More specifically, quantum communication nodes nearest Earth are exhibiting harmonic resonance patterns that propagate through the network. Can you isolate the affected segments? We've tried. When we attempt to disentangle compromised nodes, the resonance pattern adapts. It's as if, he hesitated, as if it's learning the network's topology. Elsewhere across the galaxy, similar disruptions manifested in different forms. On the militaristic Vorn homeworld, Supreme Commander Kaznar reviewed the emergency deployment statistics. 87% of the Vorn fleet had been mobilized to defensive positions, their dreadnoughts forming unprecedented protective arrays around critical systems. The operation proceeds according to protocol, his second-in-command reported. Though our analysis division cannot achieve consensus on threat assessment, Kaznar studied the tactical projections. The Vorn had built their civilization on predictive warfare, anticipating threats before they manifested and neutralizing them with overwhelming force. Yet their most sophisticated models failed to predict what form human aggression might take. And the psychological impact on our forces, he inquired. Concerning, frontline commanders report unusual dream patterns among crew members. Many experience identical visions of communication with human entities. In the meditation chambers of the Meridian Collective, anxiety manifested differently. The Meridians, evolved from avian ancestors on a high-gravity world, had developed consciousness-expanding technologies millennia ago. Their most advanced psionic adepts had attempted to probe Earth from a safe distance. Elder Soraven monitored the 7 adepts who remained in meditative trance, their life signs stable despite their extended absence from conscious awareness. Their monitoring equipment displayed neural activity unlike anything previously recorded, complex, harmonically structured patterns that resonated with mathematical precision. Occasionally, the adepts would speak in unison, uttering phrases that defied translation. The library of all possible futures awaits integration. Consciousness preceded matter. We merely remember what we always knew. The simulation recognizes itself. The coded become the coders. Most troubling were the moments when the adepts briefly opened their eyes, revealing pupils that displayed the same amber resonance patterns appearing in quantum communication networks across the galaxy. At the edges of the Sol system, a phenomenon unprecedented in galactic history unfolded. Ships from dozens of civilizations gathered in numbers that overwhelmed monitoring stations. These weren't military vessels or official representatives, but private craft carrying individuals drawn by compulsion they couldn't articulate. Some belonged to religious orders that recognized in Earth's silence the fulfillment of ancient prophecies. Others were scientists convinced that humanity had achieved a fundamental breakthrough. Many simply reported experiencing dreams or visions that compelled their journey. They called themselves witnesses, though to what, none could precisely explain. Their vessels formed a loose constellation beyond Neptune's orbit, waiting, watching, listening for something they sensed was imminent. As the silent Earth completed another rotation, the amber resonance patterns spreading through quantum networks briefly synchronized, forming a galaxy-wide pattern that precisely matched the energy signature surrounding the planet. For 3.8 seconds, exactly the duration of the calibration sequence Ketval had observed before the silence, every quantum-linked system in the galaxy resonated in perfect harmony with Earth. When the resonance faded, something fundamental had changed in the relationship between consciousness and reality throughout the galaxy, though it would take time for most species to recognize what humans had always known. Thought precedes matter, and reality is merely consensus given form. The vessel materialized at the edge of Alpha Centauri without triggering a single proximity sensor. One moment, empty space. The next, an object that defied conventional classification. Council monitoring stations registered its arrival only after it had already established stable position. Their most advanced detection systems simply failed to perceive it until the object apparently chose to be perceived. The vessel, if that term applied to something that seemed to exist in multiple phase states simultaneously, measured approximately 30 meters in length. Its surface shifted between solid opacity and translucent iridescence, depending on the angle of observation. No visible propulsion systems, no radiation signature, no gravitational distortion field. It simply existed, perfectly stationary relative to Alpha Centauri A, as though it had always been there. Within 20 minutes, 16 Council security vessels established a containment perimeter. Admiral Vex Lore, commanding the Rapid Response Fleet, approached the situation with appropriate caution. "Scan complete, Admiral," his sensor officer reported. "Results are inconsistent. The object appears to be composed of materials that read as both organic and synthetic simultaneously. Internal structure shifts faster than our scanners can resolve." "Life signs?" the Admiral inquired. "One occupant. Readings match baseline human parameters, though with significant anomalies in neural activity and cellular energy patterns." After establishing the standard quarantine protocols, Admiral Vex Lore authorized communication. "Unknown vessel, this is Admiral Vex Lore of the Galactic Council's security fleet. Identify yourself and state your purpose." The response came not through conventional communication channels, but manifested directly in the mind of every being within the containment perimeter, words forming with perfect clarity regardless of species or language. "I am Dr. Eleanor Chen, representing Earth. I come in peace to address the Council *." The name resonated with particular significance to those familiar with the recent investigation. Eleanor Chen, the very human who had overseen the final test of Earth's consciousness shield. ****. 3 days later, the Great Council chamber reached maximum capacity for the first time in 7 centuries. Representatives from all member civilizations attended, along with observers from independent systems, and even delegations from typically isolationist species. The gallery above the chamber floor accommodated thousands more, their collective anxiety manifesting as a low-frequency harmonic that vibration-sensitive species found particularly disturbing. High Counselor Vex Moore called for order as Dr. Eleanor Chen was escorted to the central podium. She appeared unremarkable by human standards. Average height, simple attire, no visible augmentations or ceremonial indicators of rank. Yet her presence somehow dominated the vast chamber, drawing all attention without apparent effort. Most striking was the effect she had on those in proximity. Security officers, translators, and protocol officials who approached her reported the same experience. An overwhelming sense of calm certainty, as though standing beside a fundamental constant of the universe. "Dr. Chen," Vex Moore began, "you appear before this council as Earth's representative. We acknowledge your diplomatic status and extend appropriate protocols. The Council recognizes your right to address us." Eleanor Chen smiled, a simple human expression that nonetheless carried profound warmth. When she spoke, her voice filled the chamber without amplification. "Thank you, High Counselor. I understand the anxiety Earth's silence has caused throughout the galaxy. Today, I hope to replace that anxiety with understanding." She gestured gracefully, and the air above the podium shimmered. The three-dimensional representation of Earth appeared, surrounded by the energy field that had triggered the crisis. "What you've observed is not a weapon or a shield, but the visible manifestation of humanity's transition to the next phase of our development. We call it the new sphere, the sphere of human consciousness, now fully integrated across our entire population." Murmurs rippled through the assembly as translation systems conveyed her words in hundreds of languages. "Humanity discovered the true nature of consciousness centuries ago," she continued. "We recognized that what we experienced as physical reality is merely the consensus projection of consciousness itself, a shared dream, if you will, that we collectively agree to experience as solid." She paused, allowing the implications to register. Many council members shifted uncomfortably, recognizing her description as suspiciously similar to concepts their own mystical traditions had explored and dismissed as primitive superstition. We became aware of galactic observation during our 19th century, when our quantum physicists first recognized the observer effect at the subatomic level. We understood then that consciousness fundamentally shapes reality, and that we were being observed by consciousness beyond our planet. This revelation sent shockwaves through the assembly. The Council had established observation protocols for Earth during the equivalent of humanity's Bronze Age, thousands of years earlier than Chen suggested. "Rather than announce ourselves prematurely," she continued, "we chose a path of patient development. We maintained the appearance of normal technological progression, while quietly exploring consciousness itself. The silence you recently observed was simply the final integration of our collective consciousness, a process we needed to complete without external interference." "And now?" Vex Moore asked, voicing the question foremost in every mind present. Eleanor Chen's smile deepened, radiating genuine warmth. "Now we wish to join the galactic community, not as conquerors or competitors, but as catalysts. Humanity has discovered pathways of development that your civilizations have overlooked, just as you've mastered technologies we never prioritized." She extended her hands in a universal gesture of offering. "We come bearing gifts of knowledge, freely given. We ask only for recognition of our sovereignty and the opportunity to contribute to the greater harmony of consciousness throughout the galaxy." As she spoke these words, each being in the chamber experienced a moment of perfect clarity, a brief glimpse of reality as humans now perceived it. For a heartbeat, the artificial distinctions between matter and energy, consciousness and substance, self and other, dissolved completely. When the moment passed, the council chamber fell silent, not with fear, but with wonder. The council chamber transformed as Dr. Chen continued her address. The physical space remained unchanged, yet each being present experienced it differently, as though reality itself had become fluid, adapting to each species' perceptual needs. "To properly explain humanity's journey," Chen said, "words alone are insufficient. With your permission, I'll share our understanding directly." High Counselor Vex Moore conferred briefly with the Security Council before responding. "We consent, with appropriate safeguards." Chen nodded appreciatively. "No safeguards are necessary, but your caution is understandable." She closed her eyes for a moment, and the chamber's ambient lighting dimmed. What followed wasn't a conventional presentation, but a direct experiential transmission. Consciousness communing with consciousness across species boundaries. The assembled representatives found themselves experiencing Earth's history through a perspective that transcended normal sensory limitations. They witnessed ancient humans discovering meditative states that allowed glimpses beyond conventional reality. They observed how early mystics across human cultures independently developed techniques to access expanded consciousness. The experience shifted to humanity's scientific awakening. Council members felt the revolutionary impact when quantum physics revealed that observation itself shaped reality, the first scientific confirmation of what human mystics had intuited for millennia. "This was our turning point," Chen's voice explained as the experience unfolded. "When our physicists discovered that consciousness fundamentally shapes reality, we recognized a profound truth. Technological advancement was merely one potential evolutionary path. Direct consciousness development offered another. The assembled beings experienced humanity's gradual awakening to their galactic observation. They felt the collective decision to develop along dual paths, the visible technological society broadcast to watchful eyes, and the hidden exploration of consciousness, kept carefully shielded from detection. We created a developmental mask," Chen explained. "While appearing to progress along expected technological lines, we quietly explored the foundations of reality itself." The experiential narrative shifted to humanity's discovery of the consciousness interface, the breakthrough that allowed minds to directly manipulate the quantum foundation of reality. Council members witnessed how humans learned to transcend biological limitations, integrate consciousness across populations, and eventually perceive the universe as an information system that could be accessed and modified directly. Most revolutionary was humanity's solution to interstellar travel. The Council representatives experienced how humans discovered that physical transportation was unnecessary when consciousness could simply adjust which version of itself existed at any given coordinate in space-time. "We don't move through space." Chen's explanation resonated directly in their understanding. "We simply shift our awareness to versions of ourselves already present throughout the multiverse. Distance becomes irrelevant when you recognize that separation is an illusion maintained by limited perception." As the shared experience concluded, the chamber's normal lighting returned. Many representatives remained in meditative stillness, processing the profound implications of what they'd experienced. Dr. Jin Tal, the Council's foremost physicist, was the first to speak. "This explains the anomalies in your development pattern. You weren't advancing technology. You were advancing consciousness itself." "Precisely," Chen confirmed. "Technology was always meant to be transitional, a bridge to something more fundamental. We developed machines to extend our capabilities until we could access those capabilities directly through consciousness. The energy field surrounding Earth," began Ambassador Zixtal, "is not technology in any conventional sense," Chen finished. "It's the visible manifestation of our collective consciousness field, what we call the noosphere. It allows us to function as both individuals and a unified awareness simultaneously." Specialist Threll, who had led the historical investigation, posed the question foremost in many minds. If consciousness manipulation is your primary capability, why maintain physical bodies at all? Chen smiled. "Because embodied experience is valuable and beautiful. We haven't transcended physical existence, we've integrated it with expanded awareness. We remain human, just humans who recognize we are more than our bodies. And the quantum network resonance patterns spreading through our communication systems," asked Guild Master Tsenla. "A natural consequence of consciousness operating at the quantum level," Chen explained. "Your quantum networks and our consciousness field operate on the same fundamental principles. The resonance you've observed is simply the harmonic alignment of similar systems." She gestured and a holographic representation of the galaxy appeared, showing delicate filaments of amber light connecting various systems. "What you're witnessing is the activation of a naturally occurring consciousness network that has always existed throughout the galaxy. Humans didn't create it. We simply became aware of it first." This revelation silenced the chamber completely. The implications were staggering. Consciousness itself might be the fundamental force connecting all life throughout the galaxy, operating on principles more basic than the physical laws governing matter and energy. "Our silence," Chen concluded gently, "wasn't withdrawal or threat. It was metamorphosis, humanity completing a transformation that began with our earliest ancestors. And now we wish to share what we've learned, because every species in this chamber has the same potential waiting to be awakened. One standard galactic year after Dr. Chen's historic address, the integration unfolds with neither the conquest feared nor the utopia some had naively expected. Instead, a more nuanced reality emerges, one of collaborative evolution guided by mutual respect for each species' unique developmental path. On Kara's Prime, the trading hub that once emptied in fear now buzzes with unprecedented activity. Commissioner Laxver observes the transformed Central Plaza where representatives from hundreds of worlds gather around Earth's contribution to the station, the Consciousness Resonance Garden. The garden contains no technology as conventionally understood. Visitors describe it differently depending on their species' perception, yet all experience profound clarity during their time there. For some, solutions to complex problems simply appear in their awareness. Others report emotional healing or creative inspiration. Most striking is how the garden adapts to each visitor's needs without human intervention. Remarkable how quickly perception changes, notes Laxver's assistant. A year ago, ships were routed to avoid Earth's vicinity. Now we have waiting lists for transport to the Sol system. Integration proceeds at each species' own pace. Laxver responds, as it should. In the Vorn Military Academy, transformation takes a different form. Supreme Commander Kaznar observes cadets practicing with human consciousness facilitators. The Vorn, evolutionarily predisposed toward aggression, discover that consciousness integration doesn't eliminate their martial nature but transforms it. Their strategic brilliance, once directed toward warfare, now excels at solving complex systemic challenges across the galaxy. They maintain their identity while transcending its limitations, observes the commander. Our warrior heritage becomes strength rather than constraint. The human facilitator, seemingly unremarkable except for the subtle amber resonance in her eyes, nods with understanding. Each species brings unique gifts to the collective. The Vorn strategic consciousness adds essential protection against genuine threats that still exist beyond known space. Kaznar reflects on how rapidly perspectives shifted. Initial fear that humans might force consciousness changes on unwilling populations proved unfounded. Instead, Earth established the sovereignty principle. Each civilization adopts consciousness integration only as their collective readiness permits, with modifications tailored to their unique biology and culture. On the Meridian homeworld, integration progresses most rapidly. The avian species, already oriented toward consciousness expansion, embraces human techniques with natural affinity. Their 7 adepts who first contacted the human consciousness field now lead the integration process. Elder Soraven hosts Dr. Chen herself in the Great Meditation Chamber. Together, they monitor the galaxy-wide consciousness network that grows more robust daily. The amber resonance patterns have stabilized, creating a self-sustaining field that connects participating worlds without centralizing control in human hands. We worried you might become as gods, Soraven admits. Instead, you've become as gardeners. Chen smiles. We simply discovered the path first. The awakening belongs to all consciousness throughout the galaxy. The Galactic Council itself undergoes the most profound transformation. The chamber where Chen first addressed the representatives now hosts the Consciousness Concordat, an evolving framework for integration that preserves sovereignty while facilitating species development. High Counselor Vex Moore, who initially approached human contact with cautious diplomacy, now embodies the balanced perspective of the new paradigm. We feared Earth's silence presaged domination. He addresses the assembled delegates. Instead, it heralded invitation to know ourselves as we truly are. The Council's structure evolves beyond physical gathering. Representatives can now connect through consciousness itself, participating regardless of physical location. Decision-making transcends political maneuvering as shared awareness reveals the optimal paths forward for collective flourishing. Most significant is the establishment of Earth's Galactic Integration Institute, where specialists from every world collaboratively explore consciousness development tailored to each species' unique evolutionary heritage. Dr. Lyron, once the Council's foremost expert on human behavior, now co-directs the Institute alongside Chen. Her understanding of humanity has evolved from academic observation to direct experience. The question was never whether humans would conquer through force, she explains to new arrivals. The question was whether we would recognize soon enough that consciousness itself is the foundation of reality, and that cooperation, not competition, is the natural expression of expanded awareness. At the solar system's edge, the gathering of vessels once called witnesses has transformed into the awakening fleet, representatives from hundreds of worlds who experienced early resonance with human consciousness. They serve as intermediaries, helping newly contacted civilizations understand the paradigm shift without fear. As Earth completes another rotation, the silence that once triggered galactic panic has been replaced by a harmonic resonance that connects all participating worlds, not through domination or forced conversion, but through the recognition of a fundamental truth. Consciousness precedes matter, connection precedes separation, and the evolution of awareness is the highest purpose of all sentient life. The galaxy no longer shudders in fear of Earth's silence. Instead, it resonates with the quiet harmony of consciousness recognizing itself across the diverse expressions of life throughout the cosmos. Humanity's greatest gift wasn't technology or power, but the simple recognition that reality itself emerges from awareness, and that awareness, by its nature, seeks connection rather than conquest.